guys, welcome to Kindred Women. I have with me Chelsea today, and we are going to talk a little bit about her story. You'll get to know her. So why don't you share just a little bit about yourself, who you are?
I'm Chelsea, and I am 32. I have to think about that for a second. I am married to my husband of 9, almost 10 years.
Okay.
And
when is your anniversary?
August 14th.
Okay, ours is in June, and it's it'll be 10 years.
Oh, so we're close.
Yeah.
And I have my baby with me, so you might hear him. He might make an appearance here. But so I have 2 kids. My daughter Emerson is 5, and then Bridger is technically 4 months, but we'll get to that.
Yeah.
He's really like 2 months. So.
Yeah. So you were involved in a pretty serious accident, and life altering, just completely changed like your whole entire life. So why don't you share a little bit about the accident, and then we can go in a little bit further.
Okay. Back in November, I was in a pretty serious car wreck, and I was 32 weeks pregnant at the time, and I was, long story short, I was life flighted to Norfolk General, and I had an emergency C-section as a result of it, along with some pretty serious injuries to myself. So Bridger is a result of the accident, so obviously not planned.
That's right.
He was not due until the end of December, and this was at the beginning of November.
Yeah.
So it pretty much, we both spent a good amount of time in the hospital, and it just kind of rearranges your life when you don't expect it.
Right.
So
Yeah.
that's pretty much the gist. A very long story.
Yeah. So obviously he was born a little bit early, and how is he doing now?
So he's doing great. He was 8 weeks early. He spent 5 weeks in the NICU, so he actually got released a little bit before they expected him to.
Yeah.
So a God moment there.
That's right.
And he's doing great. He's
good.
really doing great, thriving.
Good.
So
Praise God. Yes. So obviously you experienced a lot after, with first off having a C-section, the lack of mobility, physical pain, emotional pain, the trauma. So why don't you kind of walk us through some of what that was like, maybe in the beginning?
So one of my injuries was to my arm, and it basically shattered, and I had a big X-Fix bar on my arm, and so I was non-weight bearing, so I couldn't put any weight on my left arm at all. Which is really interesting when you have a newborn. So it was difficult because I couldn't do anything for myself. My husband had to pretty much do everything for me. And once we came home, I started using my arm a little bit to the best of my ability, and then once he came home, it was like a whole new ball game. So you get used to, it was my husband and my daughter and I, and then we got used to life like that, and then a few weeks later he came home, and it's like it all shifts again. And that's when my mental battle started. So it was physical at first, and I was in good spirits, and which was from the Lord. I don't know how, because I was laid up a lot, but once he came home, I think it was just delayed postpartum, I guess. And that's when everything for me kind of went haywire. So it was an adjustment all the way around.
So when you talk about, maybe for women who are about ready to have a baby, or have and maybe are experiencing, what are some of those postpartum symptoms kind of that you think?
So with my daughter, I had symptoms of it, so I kind of knew what to expect. The difference was with her, I never did anything about it because I was first time mom. I kind of thought it was normal. And so with him, I kind of had a mixture of PTSD and postpartum, so it's still hard to know which really it is. But the symptoms were just, I cried constantly. Just no motivation to do things that I normally enjoy. Just kind of wanted to lay around all the time. I felt like I wasn't good enough a lot. And so I ended up actually going on medicine, which was a really hard decision for me because I don't really like to take medicine in general, but it's something I prayed about, and I just felt like God was saying, you can't do this on your own, and it's okay.
That's what I was going to say. It's okay to do that. So so it is something, having a baby. I know some of us that are watching have had babies, and I can definitely relate to a little bit of those feelings when you have your first baby. Like, you're kind of like, is this what I'm supposed to be feeling? Like, is this okay? Is this bad? Like, there's just so many, all of those hormonal things. So it is important to know, like, when it goes a little bit beyond, you know, just feeling like.
And it wasn't just like baby blues. It was like a deeper than that. I don't know how to explain it. I feel like, if any moms are watching, I feel like you will know when it's more than what's normal, you know? So.
Yeah. And I think it is important to bring up the fact that the PTSD is something that's real too, that can come with that just because of the trauma of what you went through. You know, it's important to get help. It's important to have, you know, the people around you. So how, I know you've said like your husband played a huge role. How did like family and friends and people, you know, play a role in all of that?
So even just like from,
because you guys were on the news, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
We were.
Yeah.
Which was kind of news to us. We weren't really planning on that, but so my husband's a firefighter and he's a first responder. So for him, it was especially difficult because he couldn't help me. Yeah. And he's used to being the one helping people. Yeah. And so the news wanted to do a story on that. But it wasn't so much about me per se. But so from the get-go, I will say until I die that what got me through is everybody surrounding me, especially in prayer, because I've never experienced the power of prayer like I have since my accident. And I truly believe that's why I am where I am, and I'm not still laying in a hospital bed. Right.
So this is actually the first time that her and I have met.
Yeah.
She knows my sister, and I actually remember my sister telling me to pray for her, and I love that because it truly is, you know, you can pray for people that you don't even know, and so it is a testament of, you know, the amount of people that have spent time praying. So.
And your sister's one of them. She brought us dinner one time after we had come home, and this meant the world to us. Yeah. She said, before she left, she said, I just want to pray for you guys. Yeah. And, you know, people don't always think to do that, and it just meant so much to us because there's really there wasn't a ton that people could do. Right, besides pray. Yeah. And that covered me in so many ways, and, like, it brings me to tears because it's really, really powerful. And my dad shared a testimony at his church, and this is really cool, and I hope I don't mess up the story, but it's the day of my accident. There's a lady that I've known since I was a little baby, and I don't ever talk to her anymore, but she goes to my parents' church, and she told my dad after my accident that the morning of my accident, God woke her up at like 8 o'clock in the morning and said, you need to pray for Chelsea. Wow. And my accident was at like 10 that morning. And so even just like things like that, and then like the guy that sold us our house, he was our realtor. He also goes to my parents' church, and he said that when he heard about my accident, he dropped to the floor and he prayed for 4 hours. Wow. And it's truly like I should have died in that accident. Like that's how serious it was. Yeah. And so the fact that like I'm here and I'm well, and aside from my scars, you can't really tell it's an accident. And the fact that he has nothing major wrong with him is like, to God.
It's amazing. Yeah, absolutely. So. It really is a testament to how important prayer is. And even the being obedient to like when God wakes you up, you know, I mean, even sometimes like he might wake you up and put that person on your mind, and he doesn't necessarily say pray for them, but you do, or when you realize like I need to get in the habit of doing that, and we never know what that really does. Like
what I've learned is not only the importance of praying for people when they ask for it, or even when they don't, but just also being able and willing to tell people how they can pray for you. I had a lot of people ask me, you know, what can I do? And at that point, it was when I was going through all my stuff, I didn't really want people around. I was good at pushing people away, but I wasn't afraid to ask for prayer because I knew that's what had gotten me this far.
Yeah, that's good.
And so I was really specific in how people could pray for me. Pray for my mental health. Pray that God would take my anxious thoughts from me. Pray that Trey and I, you know, would continue to get along. We'd been together he's a firefighter, so I'm used to him being gone every other day for 24 hours. And we spent close to 3 months together, like around the clock. And I loved it, but it can also be hard.
Yeah.
And you add another baby to the mix, and a 5-year-old that's trying to process all of this too, and he's trying to process it, and I'm trying to process it, and it's just a lot.
Yeah.
So I was really honest with people about how they could pray, and I really feel like God blessed that, and I feel like I've seen more ways than I can count.
Yeah.
God at work through it.
Yeah, I love that. And that is very true, that when we bring this stuff to the light, then God is able to move. Sometimes that just one act of obedience of acknowledging that something's going on and that something's wrong and that we need prayer is that first step to finding that healing.
Right.
And then allowing people to use the gifts that God has given them. That's one thing that I think that sometimes we forget is it's not all about us. Like your story isn't just about you. Your story has reached tons of people, and then they were able to see their act of obedience in praying. The blessing that happened to you, is also because of their act of obedience. So I love that. Just and the specific pieces of prayer, like pray boldly, to pray, specifically for those things, because He will do those specific things.
Yes.
I mean, of course, it's fine just to say, Lord, help me. But if you know where you need help, like, Lord, help me with my mental thoughts. Exactly.
Right. Don't be afraid to say it, because He already knows your thoughts anyways. So I think for me, it was more for me than it was for God, for me to acknowledge, like, okay, I'm giving this to the Lord because I can't do it on my own, and I need His help.
So we talked a little bit about generosity and how generosity has kind of played an important role in this too. So why don't you share a little bit about that?
Oh my gosh, I could go on and on. So it's still overwhelming to me, honestly. I don't feel like we deserve any of it. So after my accident, they started a GoFundMe for us, which I didn't even know about until days after it had already been opened. And the amount that people donated, people I don't even know, just really challenged me, because I can be really selfish with money. And I like to think I'm not, but I think that's something that God has been teaching me, is just the importance of, it's just money, but it can greatly bless other people.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, don't hold on to it too tightly, because you can't take it with you.
Right.
So monetarily, people were extremely generous, which helped with medical bills and getting me a new car, because my car was totaled. And so that was huge. And then it's also allowed us to bless some other people that have, like, we know a family that's trying to adopt, and we felt like people were so generous to us, and it really encouraged us to, like, use some of that to give back to them. But then also just people sent so many gifts, meals, gift cards, Grubhub, because we were traveling back and forth to the hospital, which is a 30-minute drive, to visit him every day. And it's hard, because Emerson was in school, and we were trying to just, by the time you get home, it's like 7, 8 o'clock at night, and who's going to make dinner, and I can't cook. So just all of that, like, we didn't have to buy him a single thing. Everything on our registry was bought for us.
Wow, that's awesome.
And I'm not saying that to boast. I'm saying that because I'm overwhelmed by that. And I told Trey, I don't know how I'm ever going to write everyone a thank you card. I feel like I need to write everybody one, but it's literally impossible. I have a bag stuffed full of all the cards and gift cards, everything that we've gotten, and I will never be able to say thank you to all of those people. And there's, like...
Say it now.
Thank you if you're watching this. But there's my aunt who is a choir director in North Carolina. Her choir is still sending us cards, just telling us that they're praying for us, and I don't know any of them. And then one cool story that I did want to share is one of my friends, her dad works at CBN, and he sent me an email, or sent her an email, which she forwarded to me fairly recently, that his prayer warriors in Indonesia were praying specifically for me and for my healing, and he sent me the prayer that they were praying. And obviously I've never met these people. They're in Indonesia. And the fact that, like, God can use people halfway across the world is just really encouraging to me, and it really shows, it's like really showing me how much God cares for us. And even when it doesn't feel like it, like, I have doubted God a lot since my accident. I'm not gonna lie about that. But in in the same note, I've never seen him more clearly than I have since my accident. And I think and I hate to say this, but I think it's true. I think sometimes God uses big events like this to grab a hold of us and show us some areas of weakness in our lives that we need to surrender to him. And for me, it's control. I have serious control issues that I've known I'm a control freak. But it's taken this for me to realize, like, there are things in my life that I just need to let go. And that's what God is teaching me. It's just like, let go and let me help you with these things and don't try to hold on so tightly.
Yeah, I've experienced some of the control issues myself. Yeah, it's hard. It's hard.
I think as women, a lot of us have that, especially mothers. I think as women in general, but when you become a mom, you just take on this whole new sense of worry and things outside of your control. Yeah. And, you know, having him in the NICU, that was outside of my control. Right. And having to leave the hospital every day and not be able to take your baby with you
it's hard.
Is a whole new level of control. And then, you know, even him coming home and me not being able to pick him up or, you know, not nurse him because I couldn't hold him on this side or, you know, there's just a lot of little things. And I don't know, I could go on and on about all the ways that God has been teaching me that. But
well, and I think that it's easy sometimes to take some of the things for granted because it's just what our life is normally like. Right. And I think that if everybody could like give a virtual high five, we would all probably be able to say that the deepest, darkest times of our lives were the times where God showed up the strongest. You grew the most, and you grew the most. Yeah. And it's amazing and it's hard, but I do believe too that sometimes he allows things to happen for us to grow. And
to that, my mom actually didn't get to come to the hospital the day that it happened, which I think God was teaching my mom a little bit about these same issues too. Yeah. She kept our daughter for us because she had to pick her up from school, and we knew that she would be the only one to keep her calm. But when my mom came up to the hospital, she said she was just sitting at the end of my bed the next day, and she said I didn't look like myself. I was swollen and bruised, and she said she was just sobbing. And she said I woke up, and I was like very heavily medicated. Yeah. She said I woke up and I looked at her and I said, "Mom, why are you crying?" And she said, "Honey, I just don't recognize you." She said, "I just want my daughter back," you know. And she said that I looked her dead in the eye and I said, "Mom, God's going to use this for my good and his glory." And she said I went right back to sleep.
Wow.
And she said she just started sobbing even more. And the reason that is so cool is because, number one, I don't remember that, but what's so cool is all last year I dedicated to doing a devotional every morning, which is not easy to do, and there were some mornings I missed. But I started my day with that, and I woke up early. I'm not a morning person. And either. And I did that, and something that just was like resounding over and over and over was like, "For your good and my glory." Yeah, and so the fact that like after this horrific accident, I was able to like, he allowed me to wake up and say that to my mom. Yeah. She said it gave her so much reassurance that God was right in the middle of it. And even to this day, it's like, you know, I'm still dealing with, you know, like mental struggles, but I constantly remind myself, like, God is using this for my good. Yeah. You know, it's so that maybe in 10 years, I don't deal with some of these anxieties that I've dealt with for, you know, that I've
and he was preparing you, you know, like, that's one thing that's so amazing when we walk with him during the good times, it makes it easier. Right. Not easy, but it makes it easier for us to walk with him in the bad times.
And I feel like after, even in the hospital, like, I don't know, I was like in really good spirits, and I know that is God, and I know that, like you said, he was preparing me for that time. And since coming home, it's been a little harder, I think. I think it's just been a little bit lonelier because I was surrounded by people constantly. Right, and now it's like, okay, I'm with a baby all day, you know? Yeah. But, which is great. But, I mean, we've all been there. So I feel like doubt has crept in, and I feel like that's Satan trying to twist things. And God is just constantly, like, reeling me back in. Whether it's through random texts that I'll get on a day when I'm having a really hard day and somebody's like, "I'm just thinking about you, I want you to know I'm praying for you." Or asking me how they can pray, or a song comes on that just like reassures my mind, like, okay, God is here, Chelsea, like, don't forget that. You know, he's right here, he's not going to abandon you, he brought you this far. And so it's been a really hardest thing I've ever dealt with in my life, but also no doubt one of the biggest growth experiences of my life too.
That's awesome. And that was kind of leading into my next question was, you know, what types of things have kind of got you through? And so the text messages, the prayers, is there any specific Bible verse that you feel like, or is it just all over?
Romans 8:28, which is he works all things for the good of those who love him and are called according to his purpose. And it doesn't mean that he's gonna bring that about easily. And I think sometimes it's easy for us to think like, God, why me? Why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? And I constantly have to tell myself it could be so much worse. Which, you know, doesn't make it easier, but in some regards it does, because it's easy to fall into a trap of self-pity. Realistically, like, God has spared me from so much.
Absolutely.
And I'm still here. Like, that's a huge, I just have to remind myself. People dropping in randomly. It's been really cool because I've met, like, neighbors and, like, even meeting you and just, you know, meeting people that I otherwise would not probably have met, or I wouldn't have been comfortable, you know, stepping out and doing that. So it's been really neat. I feel like it's been a bit of an outreach to some of our neighbors too, and just to some people that I know don't know the Lord. And so I've said from the get-go, like, one of my mission in life, I guess, is like, I really want to encourage other people, and I want my life to be, I am not perfect, and I don't do this perfectly, but I want my life to be like a testimony to the power of God. And I feel like, obviously this is
it.
A big one. So I'm hoping that, you know, through this I can show people, you know, like, life's not easy, and it's not gonna be easy, but God can use even the worst of circumstances to draw people closer to himself. And so if I can be an instrument in that, then I think that's really
that's
pretty awesome.
It is, and that's an awesome way to look at it. So would you say that with, you know, the physical healing, you've been physically healed from, you know, all of course there's some scars and stuff, but do you think that you're at a place where you can say that you've healed mentally, or is that kind of still a process that you're going through?
I think it's still a process. I don't think it's fully, I'm better than I was. I will say I do think medication is helping a little bit with that, which, you know, I mentioned I'm not against medicine. I think it's very helpful. But for me, I'm just more natural. That's just how I've always been. And so for me, the decision to take medicine was very scary. Like, I cried taking medicine. And my mom was there and she prayed with me because I was having a really hard time with it, that I couldn't handle it on my own. And that's another control thing. And I just felt like, this sounds kind of silly, but like the minute I took the pill, I just felt this sense of relief. Like, God was saying, I'm with you. Like, it's gonna be okay. And I don't know what I was scared of, honestly. But I do think mentally it's probably gonna be a battle for a while. I think you mix everything I've been through with, like, sleep deprivation and just being a mom of two now, and that transition, it's just a lot to go through. It's hard to know, like, how much of this is from my accident, how much of this is from having a baby, how much of this is from the transition, you know, how much is it from not getting sleep, so it's kind of it's a lot. So if you ask me again in a year, I might have a better answer, but I do feel like it's going to be ongoing, and I feel like it's something I'm going to have to surrender to the Lord, and I think he's doing that on purpose.
Well, and the crazy thing too is that, like, sometimes it will be like a day-to-day thing, you know, like some days it will seem like everything is going smoothly, and then some days it won't, and then that's when it's almost like you just amp up a little bit more of God, you know, in your life, music and prayer and reaching out for prayer and things like that, when maybe other days you don't have to. And so it's kind of like, you know, the ebb and flow of life.
And it's very true, because I've had days where I'm like, a couple days in a row, I'm like, oh, I feel really good. And then, like, one day I'll hit me and I'm just like, oh, you know, and I feel sad. But the thing is, it's like something that I'm learning is it's okay to feel that way. And I can't, like, beat myself up for the days that I have hard days. I mean, I've been through a lot. So I'm not good at giving myself grace. I'm not good at asking for help. So it's been a learning curve for me.
And a stretch. Like, one of my love languages is acts of service.
Same.
And I also like well, like I'm totally okay with asking for help, and so like I'm always like, hey, can you do this? You want to do that? And then you know, on my end, like it has to be to a point where, okay, can I really do this on my own? And then now, like I have to pick, like I don't want to just be using this as like me just now being lazy, you know? And but it's a stretch when it is something that's a little bit out of your comfort zone of like, okay, I need to start asking for help. You know?
Well, and I think that's what's been interesting about this is for me, I literally couldn't do anything. I mean, I was very reliant on it. I couldn't drive. I just started driving again. So people had to take me everywhere. And I had doctor's appointments constantly. And
you don't want to feel like a burden.
And that's the thing is I'm very independent. And so having to really rely on other people was like a huge thing for me. And even my husband, like it got to the point where he was driving me everywhere and he was getting tired of it. Like, and you know, so then I felt like a burden to him, which he never said I was a burden, but you know, it started to feel that way. And so that's been another thing where it's like, I've been learning, you know, that's why God allows people into your life to help you. And he puts certain people in certain places. And there's been people that I haven't talked to in a long time that stepped up and like drove me to the hospital and came to eat lunch with me while I was visiting him, or like, you know, just came to watch Emerson. And they just showed up in ways you wouldn't expect. And that's a God thing, I think. So.
And you know, I think that like this whole story, I think one of the important things for viewers to see is that you can be this for someone else too, you know, and like that's what we're called to do. We're called to help the needy and the poor and the orphans and the widows. Like I had a discussion about this in my Bible study, and you know, I think we automatically, you know, we have to see the way that God views other people and what breaks his heart. And so if we can truly take ourselves out of the picture for a moment and see what other people are going through, you know, you start the meal trains, you get food to someone, whether or not you cook it or not, it doesn't matter. Like send the text messages, send the I'm praying for you cards, like just showing that you care for God's people, like because that's what he wants, that's his heart.
And I'm gonna touch on that. I have if she watches this, she'll know who I'm talking about, but there is a lady that I know who has been battling cancer for a while, and she has a ton of her own health struggles. And time and time again, she's reached out to me throughout all of this and been like, how can I pray for you? Like, I want you to know I'm thinking about you. If you ever need to talk, I'm here. And to me, that was like such a, kind of what you were saying, like, God can use you, even if you're going through a lot, you know? And in some ways, it's like I related to her because she's been through similar mental battles. And it was just really neat. And it just showed me, like you said, step outside of yourself for a minute. She could very easily be focused on herself and not give a darn, you know? But she didn't. She took herself out of the equation and was like, I'm thinking about you. I care about you. You know, I've been in your shoes in some regard. And so I think it's just important that, like you said, we remember that for other people. Because it really, I mean, truly, even just sending a card, like, I could go on and on, but there was, you know, Chelsea McKinney. There was a guy that we went to college with that knows Chelsea. I don't really know him that well. I have not talked to him since college, which was 10 plus years ago. And he sent me a card. His family sent me a card telling me they were praying for me. And I was like, I texted Chelsea. I said, how did he even know where I live? Like, and I read his card like 4 times to make sure it was his name because I was flabbergasted that I had gotten a card. But like little things like that meant the world to me because it's like, that's God. That's not me, you know? And it's just little reminders that God is so very present.
Absolutely.
And if we had more time, I could tell you so many little details about, like, God was right there. And from the amount of time it took for them to get me out of my car to the time that it took for him to be born, which saved his life, like, all of these little details that, like, I'm not in control of it. God was just overseeing all of it. And it's just truly a miracle.
It is.
So that's really cool.
So what would you say to the viewers, like, would be something that you really would want them to take away from your story?
You never know, I guess, like the influence that you will have. I think that I also want to encourage maybe moms or just women in general, maybe men, I don't know, but that are dealing with mental battles and you're scared, like I've been there.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to reach out for help, to talk to people about it, because that was like freeing for me.
Yeah.
And it was scary for me because I don't like to admit that I need help. But sometimes you do.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that it's like long term.
Right.
You know, it's a season.
Yeah.
And everything is a season. You know, we went through a really hard season of being in the hospital and now we're past that season, but we're in a different season. And so you're always going to be in a season of something.
Yeah.
And so I guess just to encourage those watching to be open to what God is trying to teach you. Be humble enough to realize that like you don't have it all together.
Right.
And there's always something that you can improve upon, or maybe you can help somebody else.
Yeah.
And just to be a source of encouragement for other people.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
I love that. Well, thank you for
You're
coming
welcome.
on.
Thank you for having me.
And for little Bridget. We've never had a little baby on here.
You're the first one.
I know. And he fell asleep. So, yeah, I know. That's awesome. And, you know, one thing to just kind of wrap this up, like, that I really love is, you know, the theme for this year's conference is Better Together. And all throughout the time that you've been talking, I've just been thinking, like, wow, you know, all of the people that came together to help you, like, that's what we're meant to do. We're meant to come alongside each other and to help each other. And so, you know, I just encourage you to pray about whether you are supposed to come to this conference, and, you know, bring your friends, bring the people that will help you be better together. And you're going to find friends there. You're going to have connections that they will just go with you for lots of different seasons. So I just encourage you to do that. We'll put the link down below and you can sign up there. So we hope to see you, and thank you again.
Thank you.
And we will see you next time.